right. I think we're started. I'm just waiting a second. If anybody's watching and you could leave a quick message on the chat if you can hear me. YouTube is saying it's not receiving enough streaming bandwidth to give a good quality connection. Oh, goodness. Let's see. All right. Let's see. I'll put in here. It's also interesting. It looks like YouTube has pre-demonetized this video for some reason. I have no idea why. Maybe it mentions Drupal and YouTube as anti-Drupal or something like that. But it looks like Hans is saying he can hear the sound, so that's good. Then we'll go ahead and get started. It's been a crazy couple weeks. I think no matter who you are, wherever you are in the world, it's been pretty crazy. Hello, Oliver and Robert. Good to see you guys again. We've had a lot of crazy things happen in the past couple weeks, and just last night, Great Britain announced, or the UK announced that they're going on full lockdown. So that's pretty much the case for almost any civilized, urbanized area of the world, and even a lot of rural parts of the world right now. So that's probably why there's like 8 people watching right now instead of the normal 3 or 4. So I guess that's good for some things. But like I said, YouTube prematurely demonetized this video. I have no idea why. So that's not going to help me at all. I was going to get like 12 cents for it. Now I'm going to get 0. But I'm still going to do this anyway because I gotta keep plugging on with my migration. Hopefully everybody's doing okay. For us, a lot of us, we are not too affected by this yet unless we work in like the event space or other areas that are harder hit, but a lot of the web agencies and web developers and things seem to be able to get by, especially since a lot of us work remote already. But I saw this past week that Hook 42, which is they haven't been around since the beginning of Drupal, but the group was formed by a few people who have been longtime Drupalists, and they had a lot of great Drupal developers and infrastructure people and such in that group, and they are disbanding as of this past week. Sounds like it may not have been completely related to coronavirus, but it was kind of the final trigger for it. I don't know. Maybe it was, but I really hope to not have to see that too much. Hopefully we don't, but if we do, hopefully you can learn some things from these streams. Oliver says at least 3 weeks, yeah. And here in St. Louis, the schools just announced that they'll be definitely closed through like late April at this point. So definitely something that's causing a lot of upheaval, and there's always the debate over, do we cause the economy to have some strife? Do we cause people to have strife? I think it's a balance, and I think everybody in the world right now is trying to figure out what the right balance is, especially since, at least in the U.S. and probably most of Europe and other places, we can't do the same kind of thing with a full-on lockdown like they did in Wuhan that really got things under control. So we have to figure out how to balance it. Anyway, hopefully people are doing well. Apparently, maybe I should remove the word coronavirus from my video description. That might have been the demonetization issue. So on that topic, though, I'm since I have all this stuff set up for live streaming already, and I have a book written on Ansible that kind of goes through how I would teach it in a classroom type setting. I'm going to be doing a new live stream series starting tomorrow on Wednesdays called Ansible 101 with Jeff Geerling, and the information is here. I mentioned this last week, but this repository that has everything for my website is open source and open to the internet, so you can go here. It's on github.com/geerlingguy/jeffgeerling-com. And so these links are all in here. But I'm going to be doing that live stream tomorrow, same time, same place, 10 a.m. Central US, or 3 p.m. UTC. The time change threw me off there because I was thinking it's 4 p.m., but it's 3 p.m. UTC. So if you are interested in automation and DevOps and Ansible, that might be fun to check out. Another thing I did actually I did it yesterday, just because I was taking a look at my issue queue on Drupal.org, and I noticed this issue was in there, and I needed to answer it. I ended up fixing, I didn't fix the bug. I might go back and work on a patch for the Markdown module. But if you remember from a few episodes, a few episodes ago, we were doing the migrations, and I kept hitting this this annoying message that said missing filter plugin, filter null. What I found out was that basically shows up whenever you have an old filter in Drupal 7 that you don't have a module that provides it in Drupal 8. So I was like, okay, I'll install the Markdown module because that provides the Markdown filter. The problem is that the Markdown filter in Drupal 7 is called filter underscore Markdown or Markdown underscore filter, whatever it is. In Drupal 8, it's just called Markdown. So the Markdown module actually added a mapping for the migration for filter underscore Markdown to Markdown, and that should be picked up whenever you start doing a migration, but it wasn't. And who was it? Down here somewhere. MD Lutz, so whoever, Michael Lutz, mentioned in a comment, because I posted this on Twitter and other places, that the problem is that when you do an upgrade migration in Drupal 8, it actually creates a migration called upgrade D7 filter format. And let me go to the code for this, markdown.module, and it's migrate. So what this module does, what the Markdown module does for this mapping, it maps the filter underscore Markdown to Markdown. It has a hook migration plugins alter that changes the mapping, or it adds a mapping for this filter, but it only adds it to migrations that have the exact label D7 filter format. But my migration is called upgrade D7 filter format, so this code was never getting triggered for my particular migration. So then I tried adding a custom module. If I go into web, modules, custom, I usually create a custom module for little sites like this because I'm not going to do much in it. Famous last words, but typically it only has a few hook overrides in it. And so originally I tried just doing this, upgrade D7 filter format. That didn't work. So I had to, when I was doing some migrations, I used print R, and then I looked at what all the migrations were that were in the array, like this, and what would happen is it would just dump that to the screen in Drush and give you an error because you're not really supposed to use print R in functions in Drupal, but sue me. It's easier that way than trying to figure out some other way of setting up debugging when I don't have a debugging set up in my code editor here. Maybe I'll do that at some point, but I haven't done it for a couple years, so I didn't want to spend the time to get that set up. Anyway, so I printed this out and I found out that the key for my migration is actually migration config deriver : upgrade D7 filter format. So I had to do this to be able to get that mapping to take its place. And now I can do the migration and the mapping works. And instead of having to go into configuration, text formats, and then resave the text formats with Markdown applied, it does that during the migration. So now my content on the site shows up without having to do all those extra manual steps. So that's a good thing. CPU is dying right now, of course. I'm going to save changes there. All right, so that was the migration thing. My poor laptop. So if I go to one of these blog posts, it should just show up. I just did a migration this morning, and this should just show up. Yeah, the content is already showing up, so that's good. So I don't have to do any extra manual steps after doing a content migration. The front page is still empty. We'll get to that soon. Don't worry. But it looks nicer than it used to, so that's good. So that was the migration mapping thing. Why is this not checked? I checked that already, I thought. Oh boy, is GitHub having issues again today? Last night I was saving stuff and it was changing every time I saved it. That would be really annoying if we hit more, let's see, GitHub status. If we hit more GitHub issues today, it says normal. Webhooks had a little issue a little earlier in GitHub Actions, but we'll see. Could just be my poor computer's like dying. Anyway, so we fixed that filter null bug. We might get to upgrading Drupal core. There was a core security release last week at some point, And so anytime that there's a security release, it's a good idea to upgrade Drupal core immediately. Now for my website, this is only running on my local computer, so unless one of you is an unbelievably expert hacker that wants to try to get into my home network and then get into my computer and then get into this Drupal site, I think I'm pretty well protected right now, because that's the only place that this code base is running. So I'll either do that today, or if we get time for it, or do it next week. Because it is important also to keep things upgraded while you're doing a migration. A migration can take weeks or months, and if you don't keep things upgraded, then at the end of the migration process, you're going to have to upgrade everything, and then you're going to end up breaking a bunch of things right before launching, because you don't want to launch your site with old, outdated, and insecure code. That would be a horrible idea, to have your site get hacked the day that it gets upgraded and migrated. So the next thing I wanted to do is work on the blog landing page, because right now views are not migrated into Drupal 8 from Drupal 7. You have to either do it manually, or there's like a views migration module that maybe we'll be able to use. And Daniel mentions with the security issue, they'd also need to be a user on the site already, which I have no other users besides my single admin user, which has a randomly generated password that's 12 characters long. So good luck trying to do all that to get into the site right now. And then I'm going to delete it anyways at the end of this session. So it would be kind of pointless. Anyway, I'm not very inspired by the fact that GitHub is not saving my changes here. That really seems like, well, now it's there. Let's see if this is working. Hey, there we go. Okay, we didn't upgrade Drupal core. So let's work on the blog landing page. Right now, I don't think I have a blog landing page on this new site. There's a blog page. Like all the blog pages work, but the blog landing page is a 404. It should be. That's interesting. I wonder if the 404 page is not showing any content, or maybe it's not a 404. Refresh. Why is it not? It's not saying it's a 404, which is strange. It's redirecting me to the home page. I don't know what's going on there, but what we need to do though is, well, apparently I need to install the Views UI module because I don't have it yet. And we're going to do this old school where you manually do it all because I don't really trust the automated migration for views from Drupal 7 to 8. And since views are configuration, if I set up the new view in Drupal 8, it will save it, and when I install it, it'll reinstall it, so it should all be good. Oh, I don't want to do this. Oh boy. Oh, when I go here, so that's another fun little thing in Drupal. Like, as somebody who hasn't been doing Drupal development for a few months, probably a year or so now, I went to this menu and I'm like, oh, I want to install a new module because I need to install the Views UI. This actually takes you to like a download or upload new module page. That it might be nice to have these drop downs have the top level page linked at the top, because I know that I now know I need to go to the extend page to install a module that exists on my site code base already. But anyway, fun little things with usability. Views UI, enable that. And like I said earlier, there's a views upgrade, Drupal 8. There's a module for this, but I don't particularly trust that just because views are a lot more complicated than content types. I think this is that module maybe. Yeah, it doesn't even have a stable release. So again, a little less trusting of doing that kind of process. I'm just waiting for this page to load. I should have used Drush to enable this module, then it doesn't have to reload the modules page. If you ever wonder why the modules page is very slow, it's because Drupal is reading and loading every single module file on the system whenever it loads this page. And it scans every directory in every module's path location, because you can have modules inside modules and things like that. Oliver says there used to be a setting you could hide the install module page. That'd be nice because I've never used that in my life. It's one of those things like in WordPress, you can update the code on the fly, but it seems not very secure for me to have your web UI be able to change PHP code on your system. But who am I? WordPress is a lot more popular in terms of installs. All right, so Views UI is enabled. Let's go to Add View. There are no views on the site that are custom yet. And I'm going to call this blog, and content of type blog post. So the page is recent blog posts. Sorted by newest first. That's fine. Create a page. It'll be called recent blog posts. Path is blog /blog, but I forget in Drupal 8 if you need to add the slash or not. I'll leave it without for now. And then display unformatted list of teasers. That's correct. And how many items? Paged 6 items. So we'll do 6 items here. And does it have a menu link? Menu, no menu. But I'll create one in here. That way I don't have to do it later. Main menu, blog, and RSS feed. I believe I have an RSS feed. Yeah, there's a feed on here. So yes. And what is that feed's path? Blog.xml. That's fine. Feed row style is content. And that looks good. Now there's also a block. Let's see. So I want to create a block. Block title, recent blog posts. And it's an HTML list of, oh, come on. Of fields. All right. And how many? 3 items. No pager. Yeah, no pager there. With a more link though, so we'll have to add that in. All right, so this should have most of the basic parts, but we'll need to add in all the little details from the page, feed, and block displays of this view once it saves. And Oliver's saying that there is a setting that you can set in your settings.php for allow authorized authorization. I can't speak. It's funny, there's a few videos back on my YouTube channel for installing stair tread risers. And in the beginning of it, I totally blanked on it, I guess, when I was editing. But I left in usually when I do these videos, I'm like, hello, I'm Jeff Geerling. And then I get into the video. But a lot of times I mess up what I'm starting to say because I'm still trying to think of what I'm going to say. So I do a few takes. And I usually cut those takes out before I start into it. But I didn't this time. So one of my kids saw that on YouTube and they're like, Daddy, why did you say you don't know how to talk? And I'm like, I don't know. Apparently that's what I say when I mess up words a lot. But anyway, allow authorized operations is a setting that you can use in settings.php. It looks like to turn this menu item off. And that might be a good idea, especially if you're on a like Kubernetes or a containerized system, that doesn't even work. So I don't know. It's kind of silly to have it up there anyway for that. All right, so we're on the recent blog post page, unformatted list, content teaser, filter published, type is blog post, and post date. So that's interesting. This is different. I wonder, I'm guessing authored on is post date. I don't know why that was changed in Drupal 8 if that's the case. Post date. There is a post date. That's for taxonomy terms. What is this? Post date. Date. So that's the date the content was posted. Authored on the date, the time that the node was created. So it's funny how things change in Drupal 7 to Drupal 8. So post date is now authored on, it looks like, for this. All right, so that's fine. Authored on is good. Path is /blog, menu. I'm putting a menu link in the Drupal 8 version. Access is permission view, publish content. Full pager, so this has a mini pager. I'm going to do a full pager here. Full pager. Apply. And again, if you hear sounds in the background, that's my kids up above me. They're literally above my head in the playroom / schoolroom. And sometimes they get a little loud and rambunctious. And now that we're all quarantined from coronavirus, we're all kind of here. All right, so we got items per page is 6. Let's see what the settings are for this. 600. Number of pager links visible. So I have this here, but I don't see that in Drupal 8. And the labels, first, previous, next. So this I have different. So I'll leave it the same here because I want it to look the same as my Drupal 7 site for now. Exposed options, no sorts. Number of pager links visible, 3. Apply. Oh, that's weird. I don't know why it's putting in a phone number there. I don't even know what that phone number is that popped up on there. That's not a phone number that I recognize, and it popped up from my own account. All right, so pager is ready, and it needs a more link. Wait, it does have a more link. That's weird for a page. I wonder if I set that. I think I set that for the block, and on Drupal 7 it must have also dropped into the page. So I'm going to set that up in the block now. Let me see if there's anything else over here in the advanced section. No exposed form. Machine name is page. Nothing. Caching, none. Should probably set up caching at some point, but I'm not going to prematurely optimize things right now. So we want the more link here. And let me go to the block on here. And we want this only for this block. First, I'm going to do that. I think if you set override and check it, it might save it for all displays, even if you did this. At least I remember that happening in either Drupal 6 or Drupal 7. So whenever I change these settings, I always change it to override first, then I do the override thing. And on here, more link, display only if there's more. And this should be all blog posts with this little, forgetting how to type this. I used to know how to type this character. And it's probably not semantically correct to even use that character, but whatever. It's what I have in Drupal 7. Yeah, Views UI could use a little less page reloads. It's all using Ajax, but it still is slow if you're live streaming and your CPU is completely chewed up by that. All right, so I got the more link. I just realized I didn't turn off notifications on my Apple Watch, so I'm getting some messages from Slack and things like that. I usually turn off notifications for everything for these live streams. That way it gives me a little more time to focus and not get distracted. All right, so I think that's all. Oh, the fields. So I need content title and content post date, which might be authored on date in Drupal 8. We'll see. Authored or date. Nope. Authored. Authored on this block. All right, and then let's see if that's formatted differently. I think I have it formatted with MJ. So month, I think that's month and day without leading 0. So I'll say custom MJ, no label, formatter. Don't want to do that. Time zone default. Is there any style stuff? Add default classes. Let's see if that's, yep. If I were doing like being a strict themer, I would probably not add default classes and I would customize some HTML and make it more semantic and all that. But who's got time for that on their personal website? I guess people who do theming for a living do, but I don't always. All right, and then title. I don't think there's anything custom in here. Link it to the content. Okay, so that's all good. And then published, yes. Blog post, authored on, descending. 3 items. Block name is blog posts, so I'll put that there. Blog posts, apply. Permission view published content is access control, so that's good. Allow settings, items per page, that's fine. I don't know what this is, block category. I guess that's something new in Drupal 8. To be honest, the block, it's like with blocks, you set up your blocks on a site one time and you pretty much never go back there. So I always forget how the block interface works until I go back into it, which I'll need to do soon. All right, so we got the block, we got the page. Let me check on the feed if there's any settings that I need to change. 10 items, blog.xml. It's still loading. Peter says, are you from Belgium as well? If you're speaking about me, I am not from Belgium. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, USA. However, my family ancestry is mostly Irish and mostly Dutch. So it's a little sad seeing all the coronavirus effects in all of Europe, but I know the Netherlands has been somewhat impacted more than some other countries, and so that's a little troubling. Although a lot of it is like how long it's been since it's come into the country. And here in Missouri, our cases are starting to do that exponential increase, and it's not looking pretty. So I have been inside for a week and a half now, not even going out. Yeah, and Geerling is a Dutch surname. And in fact, this is something that's not on the new site yet. But if I go to my old site in the footer, this is part of the Geerling family crest, which has the bright orange Dutch color, the Holland orange, as I call it. And a couple live streams ago, I was actually wearing my Netherlands soccer jersey. So for the blog, 10 posts. Okay, I think this view is ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and save it now. Whenever you see the little asterisk, that means there's changes to that display. And until you hit save, those changes aren't saved. So some people make all these changes and then they go back to their site and they're like, what happened to my view? It's not saved. And I don't believe that Views has one of those little pop-ups that says you have unsaved changes on the page before you go off of it. So that can be confusing sometimes. All right, so if I go home, I should see the blog link in the main menu now, I think. We'll see. Yeah, there it is. So if I go to blog, I should see a list of my blog posts, and we'll see how close it looks to the existing website. It's not looking bad. And there's a pager, and the pager is actually themed. So the pager markup must not have changed much between Drupal 7 and Drupal 8. There's a little feed link over here. And back in the old days, you used to get a little feed icon up here too, and you could subscribe to it. But nowadays, it seems like browsers don't care about RSS, unfortunately. I care about RSS. That's how I get like 80% of the news I read is sites' RSS feeds. And if your site doesn't have an RSS feed, I'm not going to follow it. So too bad for you. All right, so let me compare this to the Drupal 7 version of the blog. Click, click, there we go. So we do have a little theming work to do here. Most of the alignment issue is just because of the bigger header up here. If I make that smaller, looks like things are pretty close. I need to get rid of the page title here. However, that's still in the markup. So on Google, it would say recent blog post, Jeff Geerling. And then it looks like I do some theming to the titles, which is not applying. And there's nothing to the read more links. Those are the same here. And let's see the bottom. So there is a little bit of difference in the pager. So these links on Drupal 7 have less space between them. And it's funny, I do have that, the more link is in the Drupal 6 or the Drupal 7 version. And if I click on it, it just goes back to this page again. So that's kind of a pointless, useless link. In fact, since I'm here, I might as well, since it could be another month or two before I fix this, I might as well remove that more link. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the block, turn off the more link, or I'm going to leave it on for the block, go back to the page, and globally, I'm going to not create it. Let me make sure that's the same. Okay. So now if I go back on my Drupal 7 site, that more link is gone. The useless more link. That was interesting though. Revisiting Docker for max performance. Oh, you know what? When I imported the site, I noticed that the comments were different here. When I imported the site this morning, a little bit after that, somebody commented on this post, the Docker for Mac Performance with NFS Volumes post. So that is the issue there. Okay, so the blog is looking good. I just need to make sure I get these new styles added, which should be in my themes somewhere. Oops. Themes, Jeff Geerling, CSS. So I wonder if it's under, let me look at where these styles are coming from. Goodness, everything is slow when you're doing live streams on an older computer. This isn't too old though. Peter says, my website always used Drupal, but it's also under construction for over 5 years. Yeah, it's funny, like every project that I work on nowadays, like this one included, I have an issue tracker or a Trello board or something, and I start popping issues in here. And there's always, the number of issues always grows faster than the amount of issues I close out. So this is the first time on a personal site that you're going to see this in public, but it's, you know, yeah, some of these issues here are probably going to be open in 5 or 10 years whenever the next time I consider upgrading my website happens. Oh well. All right, so this style is coming from .node header h2a. So let's find that in here. It's not in there, so okay, so general node styles. So that's, it looks like that's for any node listing anywhere on the site. So let's see what it is in Drupal 8. I can update that. Come on. And Peter says he hates the migration process from 7 to 8. Yeah, in agreement there. It's not been all butterflies going from Drupal 7 to 8. Drupal 6 to 7 had its own quirks, but it was, I don't know, in some ways it was better, in some ways it was worse. A lot of times I had to set up a manual migration anyways, using the migrate module, just because the automatic upgrade.php stuff wouldn't work. Let's see, so this is article class with node. So this is .node. Oh, there's no header. So what I need to do, I think I might update the node template to add a header to nodes in listings, because there's a footer. This is interesting. So there's a footer, and where's the content? Oh, that's weird. The footer is above the content. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I guess that is technically semantic, because footers don't have to be at the bottom. I don't know. The word foot implies that it would be at the bottom, but whatever. But this should be, I think this should be a header. I like that, and that's the way it was in Drupal 7, so let's make it that way. I already have the node.html.twig template overridden, so I can just go in here, node.html.twig. H2 is right here. So if it's not a page, I want to put this into a header. Actually, I should put it, this whole thing should be in a header, like that. And then I'll increase the indentation and say / no, not H2, header. Save that. Okay, so let's see if that works. I need to go, I'm going to flush caches using drush. All right, so drush, CR. That should clear out all the caches, including the twig cache. And technically, I think I have the twig cache disabled, but it's still, I still have to clear caches a lot for some reason, so whatever. And no Sass or build tool, no, not right now. I mentioned in a few other earlier episodes, I'm not spending too much time getting all the dev tooling set up locally for 2 reasons. One is this website, like the past version of it, I started it in Drupal 7 in 2011 or something like that. And I kept working on it on and off. Usually it would be like an hour here or there once every month or so, maybe every 3 or 4 months sometimes. And the problem I have with integrating a bunch of dev tools like Sass and all that is the timelines I have for my projects are in the 1 to 5 to 10 year frame. And the timelines for a lot of those dev tools are like 6 months or a year or 2 years before they're unsupported or before you got to change everything. So for a lot of my projects, I don't use them at all, just because it takes so much more effort to get those tools to work every time you jump back into your project. So that's why a lot of times I'm a little more conservative in my dev tooling. And I often don't add all the bells and whistles because I've been burned so many times where you add a bell and whistle and start depending on it. And then that bell and whistle changes, and then you have to spend more time working on your dev tool setup than you do actually building your project. So even though it's not automatic and in the background and all that, it's not really slowing me down. There's an XKCD about this actually. XKCD automation. If it were something that made me a lot slower all the time, there is an XKCD. I can't even, as I say, I can't speak. Yeah, so this is kind of what happens a lot of times. Is you're like, oh, I'm gonna work on automating this process, and what happens sometimes is these dev tools require so much setup work and then so much maintenance work just to get the dev tool to keep working. And if it's like some of these auto reloading things, I've noticed take a lot of CPU. So you can see my CPU is getting gobbled alive by OBS, the streaming software. So if I had one of those running in the background, it would probably take out the rest of the 20% of CPU remaining, and we wouldn't even be able to do this live stream. But for a lot of projects, they are helpful, especially if it's something you're working on day in and day out. Anyway, so that's my long answer to your question. But it looks like that worked, but there's still this recent blog post title. So let me see, I think that's just hidden on here. Here, page title, .page-blog page title. So there's no page-blog class on the new thing, I'm guessing. And that would be page blog? No. Page blog page title. So that's this. Let's see what the what classes I have to work with here. So it's still page title. Oh, it's a .page title. And then that's the page title block. Is there a page blog thing or something? Path blog. That might not be correct though. So let me go to another page on the blog and see if there's still, excuse me, I might have a sneeze coming. Or not. I'll try blowing my nose instead. I don't have a mute button, so sorry. We have baby chicks upstairs for our kids to watch during this wonderful coronavirus time. And the baby chicks, I believe I have found that I am allergic to feathers because since they've come in, every once in a while I just get like a super allergic feeling and then it goes away. So guessing it's them. Let's see. So on this one, I want to check if I still am. So there's a auto-generated class for the body called path-blog. I want to see if that's the same on this page or if it changes. Body class path blog. So we still have it. So I can just do .path blog like that. Actually, you know what? I should probably do this the right way. I'm going to go to the view. I'm going to go to the blog post view, and I'm going to make it. I'm going to add well, the view would have it, but I don't know if the page would have it. I'm just going to keep it this way. I'll be lazy. Lazy's good because it works. And then, so we got that. And the comments are looking good. Everything looks pretty good on here. I think we got it to look the same. Dates are the same. Everything else is looking the same. Read more links. All right, I think we're good. Oh, the pager spacing is a little interesting. So let's fix that really quick. Probably should use the visually hidden class. I think, I mean, it's not, well, yeah, that's true. Is there a way that I can do that easily? Where's page title? Oliver makes a good point. So being lazy is not always the nicest thing to do. I mean, technically speaking, it's not that important to have it. I mean, it might be actually, because if you are using a screen reader, you might not know the context of the page that you're on. So I can add page, oh, there's a page title template. Let's do that. Let's see. If I added that class, Visually hidden. So that hides it, but it still lets screen readers pick it up. Okay, so what that does is it adds this class that's in the Drupal. Oh, there's apparently a module for it, hidden.module. There's a class that basically throws it off the page or something, or hides it that way. So it's more semantically kind, empathic. Again, I can't speak. Anyways, it's better to do that for accessibility than to throw it off with display none. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to override the page title html.twig template. But I only want to override it for this page. So what I might do is I'm going to find that template first. It's classy page, page title.html.twig and the classy template. I'm going to open this template. So another tip for anyone on the Mac, if you ever are in a file and you want to go to its folder in the Finder, you can always hold down the Command key and click on the title in the document on the title bar here. And I'm going to click into that folder and it opens it up in the Finder. So copy that with Command C, go back over to my theme. Themes, whoops. My computer's so slow that the Finder can't keep up with me. Paste it there. Page title, page title, where is it? Page title. So this page title is going to apply to everything on the site. What I want to do is figure out how to say if we're on the blog page, hide it. Let's see. Page title, template, Drupal. If anybody has theme suggestions. Here, customize title template based on page. That is exactly what I want to do. I just don't remember if there's like something in here that I can target, or if I need, I might need to do a hook alter. Theme suggestions. Okay. So I can do something like this. That makes sense. So I want to go into my theme file. I'm going to override hook theme suggestions, hook alter, and I'll go here. Theme name is Jeff Geerling. If this is a node, it's going to add a suggestion to the templates for the content type. And that way I can name this, where's page title.html.twig? I can name this page title -- blog. No? Oh, this is not a node though, this is a view. If I'm going to do Drupal, how to see if you're on a view. Theme suggestions. What are your thoughts on Drupal long term? Yeah, it's interesting. I think that since Drupal 8's come out, the Drupal community has definitely shifted. I think it's even contracted some because in Drupal 7 and before, Drupal was a little bit easier to approach from someone who's not necessarily a programmer for any kind of site, even if you built something really big and complex. That has good things and bad things. You can build sites that are a huge mess to try to maintain, which I've seen so many of those, and that's one reason why some people choose to not upgrade to Drupal 8, because they made this massive Drupal 7 site that's impossible to wrap your mind around, and upgrading to Drupal 8 is going to be basically a rebuild. In my case, it's not, because I intentionally keep my site pretty simple. But a lot of people, that kind of threw them off. So there is some contraction there. Also, the fact that writing modules is a little bit more involved. The results aren't out yet, but the Drupal Local Development Survey, the 2020 edition, is there's like 500 or so responses so far. It's interesting to see that in the past few years, more and more developers have started using full IDEs like PHP Storm and not code editors, just basic text editors like I'm using Sublime Text. Sublime can work with things like debuggers and object-oriented languages and seeing the definitions of things and all that. But it's a little bit harder to get my thing set up. PHP Storm is set up for that kind of stuff. So if you're working in Symfony and other projects that have a lot more of the structured programming, that environment is more helpful. But it's also, I think for a lot of people, it's also a little bit daunting. And because of that, fewer people are getting into it. So there's one thing is there's fewer people available for it, but also the few people that do a good job seem to be more in demand. So if you work with a Drupal company that needs a lot of good developers, it's actually really hard to find someone. And there's also not as many people on the low end who are like junior level developers getting into Drupal on their own accord anymore. So you kind of have to train them up and get them to come into your shop that way. So anyway, yeah, and Shoseki, terrible with names again. He mentions that once you're in Drupal 8, it's actually really nice, and that's the reason I finally chose to upgrade my site to Drupal 8 and not to go static or go something else, because Drupal 8 is actually really nice once you're in it, or if you're building a new site in it. There's a lot of very convenient things about it. It's definitely a modern framework versus Drupal 7, which Drupal 7, if you're trying to do a lot of modern things, sometimes it's actually really hard. With Drupal 8, it's nice. It's like driving a Tesla versus an older car for the user interface aspect of it, not for the fact that you're driving a car that you can't actually own because the software on it is updated over the air and all that. But anyway, that's my thoughts there. You guys can continue chatting it out though while I figure out this how to get a theme hook suggestion for the blog view. Adding theme suggestions for views, that's what I want to do. Theme suggestions hook halter. So it should, if you want to add a template for all views based on their ID, that would work for me. But I want to change the page title alter. So what I want to do is I want to say, I wonder if I can get the variable view. If, let's just do oh, you know what? I don't have Devel available. So I'm actually going to install Devel really quick. Composer install dev Drupal Devel. I think that's it. No. Composer require. Goodness, require. Okay, so I'll let that do that. And I'm going to do DPM on variables because I want to see what I have available in here. So the Devel module, if you don't know about it, is a handy module that lets you dump information to the screen and it has some other development tools for Drupal, that kind of thing. And since I don't have this set up with xdebug to debug stuff from inside the Docker container, I'm going to do it this way. This is like poor man's debugging, but it's also debugging that works for me, so that's why I do it. Demon326 says, that's why the Drupal curve is so hard. You lose more time on Google than creating stuff. And as you can see from this episode, we are definitely hitting that point. Like, I want to change the page title template for this page. And to do that, I need to find if it's a view, and if it's a view, add a theme hook suggestion. This is, I mean, on the flip side, this is something that is relatively easy to do with Drupal, and it could be harder to do in some other systems. In WordPress, it's both and. I've had to do some of those kind of things in WordPress, and the nice thing is in Drupal, at least it's logical the way that you do it. Once you've done it a couple times, you understand. But until then, it is like, it's like, I have no idea what I'm doing here. So you look it up on Google and you hope that somebody gives you some useful suggestions. And Composer is still doing its thing. I think, who was it? Somebody posted something on Twitter, like, what do you do? What is your hobby to do while Composer is doing an update? And someone said, oh, I make a cup of tea and
someone else did something else. But I don't know. That was from a few days ago on Twitter. Like the next day from something that you saw, good luck ever finding that tweet again, because Twitter search is terrible, and there's so much stuff on Twitter that it's kind of like very ephemeral. It's funny because everything's stored forever, but it's so hard to go back and find anything. Yeah. Peter says, I don't like writing PHP for WordPress. It's even worse. Exactly. That's my thought on it, is like in WordPress, you don't really understand it. It might be easier to do sometimes, but it's not easy to understand or figure out why it's that way. Or in some cases, why you're mixing HTML and PHP in the same file. A lot of times I can't understand that at all. I mean, back in the old days, PHP 3 and 4 or whatever, that's how you did it. But nowadays, that's not how we program. All right, so we have this... the devel module should be enabled. I'm going to enable it in here. Drush PM enable devel. Let's see if that works. All this because Oliver wants me to make my website accessible. I think you should get a gold star for that, but it also means that I'm spending an extra 10 minutes on it. But all for the greater good of those who have visual impairments, and I sympathize with them, because I've had some eye trouble here and there in the past. Some of the things that I take for my Crohn's disease can affect my eyesight, and so some people are like, oh, you don't really need 4K when you have a 14-inch monitor and all that, but it's not necessarily about how sharp something is for video and other things, but sometimes with text, I found it easier to have a 4K display with the sharpness and a little more contrast. And that's one reason I use dark mode, because a lot of times the dark mode is like black with white. And it makes it easier for me to see when I do have some of that eye trouble. And I also remember I got LASIK surgery. That's why I am able to not wear glasses. I never was able to wear contacts that much. So I got LASIK a few years ago, and recovering from that, your eyes are really sensitive to light. And you could really tell when somebody didn't do a good job with accessibility for text on the site. This is something for screen readers, so that's a different level entirely. But even for general text on a site, like this kind of text here on Stack Overflow is barely legible when you're having trouble with your eyes. I can say that from experience. So having this be darker and or bigger and or bolder is always better. So that's why on my side, I'm trying to go that direction. I might actually make this a little larger, and also I have an issue in the backlog to make the background true black. Two good reasons for that. One is accessibility. The other one is I was browsing my site on my phone, and I noticed that when it's this color, which is not quite black, it actually uses some of the backlight on the screen or whatever, because OLED. If it's black, it turns the backlight, it turns those pixels off completely. So it saves power, and it makes the viewing experience a lot better if you have an OLED screen that can have true black. So that's kind of cool. Anyway, going way off on a tangent here. Let's see what we got. I'm going to save this page. It enabled the devel module, refresh, and it should drop. It's not doing anything here. Oh, this is my Drupal 7 site. I go back to the Drupal 8 site, refresh the page, and it should drop the variables, I believe, into the top here. We'll see if that works or not. Sorry, not sorry. It is better for SEO, I guess. It doesn't make a huge difference for SEO, but it does help for sure. Because SEO, the page title element is the main thing for that, or not the page title, the head title is the main thing for listings, and also what it uses for search triggering, as far as I've been able to tell. Let's see here. It might be dumping out a lot of variables. I'm not sure. Yeah. Okay. So let's see if there's anything with view. View is not found. Oh, there's not a whole lot here that we can work with. So I can't tell if I'm on a view or not. That's for sure. But I can see the markup, recent blog posts. What I might do for now is I might just say if variables title markup equals recent blog posts. I'm going to put a to do in the code here too. To do. Find a better way to override this template for the blog view. So I'm going to say if the title is recent blog post, then add page title views. I'm just going to add a custom one, views blog, like that. All right, what that should do is let me call this page title, where is it here? Page title views blog. All right, so that's good. And then I want to add, what was I going to do? Oh, I'm going to add class. Can I add multiple classes with add class like this? And what was the class that we were going to add? Visually hidden. Visually hidden. I don't think that'll work, but it might be add classes. Drupal, go back to Google. Drupal twig add classes. Oliver is right that having good header structure and H1 heading helps. And Harry says you can create a template for the title field, and that's what I'm doing. I'm overriding the default page title template for this. Add class. Can you chain add class together? Oh, you can pass an array to the add class. I don't know. We'll see if this works. I need to go here and say, I need to flush caches again, so I'll do that. Waiting for the caches to flush. So now the two things that I get to do the most with Drupal 8 is waiting for caches to flush and waiting for Composer to install or update something. I'm gonna grab a drink while it's doing this because it seems like it's taking forever. Oh my, it's almost 11 o'clock. US Central Time, that is. In case anybody was worried that they time warped if they're in a different time zone. All right, let's refresh this and see if the page title is different. I believe this should work. Oh, Harry also says I could just put these together. That might work, but I think you can pass, well, I don't know if you can pass multiple strings like this. You might have to pass an array. No, the page title's gone, so, oh, you know what though? I still have this, where is it, blog? I still have this in here, so I need to delete that. Refresh, let's see. Oops, inspect. It's almost 1700 wherever Hans is, which would be somewhere in Europe. Where would that be? Maybe somewhere on the eastern side of Europe. I'm just guessing, like Germany, that area. I know his UK is plus 6 hours from me, 6 or 5 or something like that. So I would imagine you keep going a little bit further east. Let's see. The page title is up here somewhere. Page title. Block content. Ah, it worked. So that works. How wonderful. All right. So we have visually hidden is in here. That's overridden for this page. Let me check on another page. I'm going to go to a blog page and make sure it's not overridden there. Because that's the other danger. Sometimes when you're fixing something in Drupal, you're like, oh, I fixed it. This is great. And then you go somewhere else and then you're like, oh, look, a white screen of death error. That's no fun. So you may have, what is it? The cure is worse than the disease in this case. So now I need to say docker compose logs-f. Excuse me. And of course the logs are not streaming to the output. That's something I need to fix in that container. Docker ps. So I have jeffgeerling.com. I'm going to check the PHP logs. Denter is I have a shortcut to enter a Docker container. It's called denter. So I'm going to go cd var log cd apache 2, tail-f star.log, and let's see what I'm getting here. Okay. Here's a fun long error message. Cannot use markup as an array in jeffgeerling.theme on line 34. That's interesting. Line 34. Okay. So I might need to wrap this in is set. And so I'm going to say if this is set this way and the markup title equals recent blog posts. Like I say, I have a to-do here. I might do this after the thing is over. So Daniel says it's 4 p.m. in the UK. So it sounds like you're wrapping up your first day in total lockdown. Hopefully you guys are having a fun time there. So let's see if that works. Refresh. We got the little spinning rainbow beach ball thing. I don't see that too often. Nope, still getting this. What is it saying now? Cannot use markup as array. Well, that's really annoying. If I don't know what to do here. Let's see. So if, how about if is array? I think that's, we'll try that. Wait, we don't want to, if not is array. Because if it's not an array, no, that doesn't work. Well, this is annoying. Daniel says he's always been working from home, so it's not a big difference. Same here. And Peter says he's been in quarantine for 2 weeks, so it's old hat for him. Let's see. Line 34. So anyway, something's funny here. It's not letting me... I would think that this call should work and not trigger this. But since it's 11 o'clock, I'm going to, what I think I'll do is between now and next stream, I'm going to figure out a better way for this because this is fragile anyways. It's never good to compare a string to something to create a theme hook suggestion, because if I ever change the title of the page to like blog posts, this would break. It's better to say if we're on the blog view, do this. So I'm going to figure that out between now and next stream, and we'll talk about that. But in general, we got the blog listing working, and before I wrap things up, I'm going to, I'll exit out here. I'm going to make sure I export the view that I just created. So that's using drush config export. So I'm going to grab that command and just drop it in here. And we'll make sure that the view is in the code base. I'm going to delete this out for now because that's just not working. And I think the node is good. We put that in a header. This is good for now, and I just need to figure out a better way to override that theme hook suggestion. Hey, wait, this is back. That's not right. Oh, this might be a different page that I had loaded earlier. Recent blog posts. Peter says his family is from the hot zone in the Netherlands, and I hope that they are doing okay. I know I have a relative who is also in an area where they had like no cases, and then all of a sudden there were 13 cases from a bunch of people who had gone on a cruise together, like in that area. And you know, it's like just stay inside. Hopefully the community spread didn't happen before, but I'm guessing it has a lot of places. So let's see, configuration was exported. So views. So that's interesting that there's some updates to these things, probably just reordering. Extensions, I added the devel module, so I might need to override that because, well, at some point in the future, I'll add config split or whatever the new version of that is in Drupal core so that we can have development modules and production modules. So there's a new view, the blog view. The devel menu I don't want to have in my production configuration, so we'll add it for now, but I'll add an issue to take that out in a config split for dev versus production. Same thing for devel settings and toolbar settings. This block keeps popping in. I have no idea why that happens. It's very annoying. It's something in the migration. I'll have to figure out how to ignore that at some point. And then there's the markdown format has a little change to it, I guess, from the last migration I did. So anyway, I'll commit those in, and next episode I'll have figured this out, hopefully, or else I'll still be working on it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week until we get to it again. And as with all these episodes, if you would like to improve my profit on it from like 2 cents, or in this case, since the video is already demonetized, to 0 cents to like 1 penny, there's a subscribe button right below me. Hit that and you can make sure you get all these episodes in the future the second I start them. If you hit the notification thing, that gives you an annoying notification that I hate, but if you like getting those notifications, you can do that too. I also am reminding everybody that tomorrow I'm doing a live stream on Ansible 101. I'll be going through my Ansible for DevOps book, which again is currently free if you're interested in that book. At the end of the month, I'll put it back to its normal price, which is $10. But if you get it free, you get every update that I write for the book forever for free as well. So if you are interested in it, get it now before it's not free. And I will see everybody next week. So let's see. Did I fold config into a profile? I haven't done that. I could create a custom install profile. Right now I'm just using the minimal install profile. But to me, it's like 6 of one, half dozen of the other. It's the same thing as what I'm doing, which is basically doing the install using existing config. If I were doing a site that I were a little more formal about, like most of the other sites that I have done in the past for companies and for other big projects, I would create a custom install profile and the config would be part of that install profile. But for my personal site, I'm just doing it this way. It's slightly less formal but it works fine. Any other quick things? Comparison on the route name. I might be able to do that. I probably shouldn't just look at variables. There's probably other things I can look up here to get either the route name, or if there's probably some way to see like, is the current page a view, that kind of thing. So Peter says after this, nobody's going to go on a cruise again. I think that could be true, although my parents who enjoy cruises have said that they might go on another one here and there. I don't know. They're appealing. Like a cruise is like a prepackaged vacation on rails, which is appealing in some ways because you can't like change what you're doing, and you have like a list of things you can choose from for each day. So I see the appeal of it, but I don't like the fact that you're kind of in a tin can with a bunch of other people, and if one of them's sick, you're all going to get sick, no matter what it is, coronavirus or flu or cold or whatever. But anyway, so let's see. I think that's about it. Again, click subscribe. Also, if you liked today's episode, I always forget to ask this, but there's a little thumbs up button, and that would be wonderful to get some clicks. It looks like 4 people already clicked it. I'm sure there will be at least 1 or 2 people that click dislike. I guess they just like being contrarians. We Drupalists often are anyways. So I will see you next week, and please follow your local government guidelines. We're all in this together. There's, I see a lot of people talking about how coronavirus only impacts the old people and that kind of thing. And that's dangerous thinking, because it's saying that like old people aren't part of our society. And it's also not just attacking old people too. There's a lot of people who are in a situation like me, where I'm on 2 immunosuppressant drugs. I'm otherwise very healthy. I play hockey. I have 3 kids and I'm a dad and all that. I'm a pretty healthy person, but I'm on 2 drugs because of the sickness that it's a chronic illness that I have, Crohn's disease. And, so far from what I've found, nobody with Crohn's disease has died from it, but there have been serious cases. And it's not necessarily about saving old people's lives. It's not something like that. It's something much, much more important to try to preserve our hospital system and preserve our ability to have good health care for people. No matter what country you're in and what kind of health system you have, we've already seen how things can get overloaded in parts of China and in Italy, and in some other countries are starting to have pressures in New York and the USA. So definitely stay inside, get some good books like Ansible for DevOps and Ansible for Kubernetes. Go back and watch all these episodes, do stuff, be with your families if you have a family, but don't go out and visit your other parts of your family, because that's also something that would spread the disease. But do the right thing, and let's attack this. And hopefully by the time that I get this Drupal site migrated, which at this rate is probably going to be sometime in 2022 or 2023, by the time that Drupal 10 is out, hopefully by then we'll have conquered this illness. So thank you, and I will see you next week. And I have to click end twice. So there we go.